Velkommen til en ny episode av podcasten Manneprat. Today I have with me Kenny Mammarella from Manspeak UK. Is that right, Kenny?
Mm-hmm.
Warmly welcome and good to have you on finally.
Thank you.
So maybe I can just give the word to you and you can share a little bit about yourself just so the listeners know what we have going on here.
Cool. So my name's actually Kenny Mammarella di Cruz. I married an Italian woman, and her name's Mammarella, and mine's di Cruz. And the reason we put them together is we were very clear that we don't want to follow the script of her family, and we don't want to follow the script of my family. We want to follow our own script and live in the way that's true to the both of us. And for me, that's one of the most important things in my life is that it's my life, not the way that it used to be, which was a life that was addicted to thinking and changing and surviving and saving women and getting approval and all that kind of stuff. So to cut a long story short, I started holding men's groups about 25 years ago when I came back to the UK. I had a successful marketing and publicity business in the UK. Pretty much all my dreams came true. I was supposed to marry my girlfriend, who was a wonderful singer, and I had a thriving business. And I kind of thought, I wonder what else there is. And do I want to be a rich, successful man, and this is the rest of my life doing this? Or do I want to see what else who else I might be and what else I might have? And the one thing that was missing from my life was sunshine. And through various coincidences, I ended up moving to Fiji. I had a friend who was the daughter of a chief. The chief wasn't much of a chief, and she was taking care of the village and the district. So I went over and I helped her and worked in development and things like that. And I guess for me, the reason sunshine was important is I'm a refugee. My family had death threats. My father was an enemy of the state in Uganda under the dictator Idi Amin, who lived very close to us in Uganda. So we came here as refugees, and I moved into this town in Wales from refugee camp. And I guess a part of me was looking for a home and looking for a home of my choice. So I ended up traveling the world. I worked with Mother Teresa in Calcutta with dying men. I started holding groups in Sydney, men and women, about 28, 29 years ago. And I followed. It's like I gave my life back to wherever I need to be, whatever I need to do, and I followed. And then I came back 5 years after leaving, basically to see the people that I love the most in the world and to say, look, I love you and I love Sydney and I'm moving. And that was in 98. I didn't actually move back. But when I came back, most of my male friends were distracted. Drink, drugs, sex, money, power, fame and fortune, whatever it was. And for me, it's like, I need more. I need to be met at depth. I'll still go raving, I'll still go partying, I'll still go camping, I'll do whatever, but I need depth. And I think it was about 16 of us in my home. A lot of them had never met each other. And in Britain, there's a very strong hierarchy, the different classes. I was surprised at how they were scared of each other, some of these guys, because they were in a room with people from different classes. But I literally said, I don't know what a men's group is, but I need to be met at depth. I'm starting one now and you're in it. And that's where it started. And then people heard about it, people changed, people's lives improved, and then strangers kept coming and coming. And that's where the men's group started. So now so I've trained a lot of people to hold men's groups and it helps their businesses or their practices, or that just the way that they give back to life and enrich their own lives. I work in London. Roughly, I'm there every fortnight. I've got a therapy room, so I see private clients, probably 50-50 male and female, and I work online. And I also have a weekly column in a national newspaper. I think it's the newspaper of the year for a few years in the UK, where men write in with their issues and I respond. I never tell people what to do, but I ask questions. They find out their belief systems, they look at their options, and they make their own choices. So it's a busy, fulfilling life for a young 60-year-old who feels like I haven't quite peaked yet. So I wonder what's around the corner.
Thank you for sharing. Just out of curiosity, in the newspaper section, is there a red thread for the questions that is coming in? Or what do people ask? What are people curious about and things like
It's it's totally across the board. It could be the last one that was in the paper was it's sober October, and my wife wants me to give up drinking this month. She wants us to have a baby. We've moved to the countryside. My friends are still in the city, and I didn't know that I was signing up to be controlled. Told I'm not drinking or seeing my friends anymore. What do I do? Or there was another one. I feel guilty because I love one of my children more than the other one, and I'm concerned about my parenting. Or it could be about relationship issues, it could be about sexual issues, it could be pretty much anything that a man faces. I think there were some about menopause. I don't know how to manage my wife's hormones, and I feel like I'm in trouble all the time. And I would say menopause, perimenopause is something that I didn't really know that much about until lockdown. And from the first day of lockdown, I launched daily groups online. So since, what is it, 2, 3 years ago, every day online we have men's groups. People come in from all over the world, and people check in for an hour. And it started during lockdown because the men were locked up with the women, and they were locked up with their issues and their hormones and everything else. And so many men came online basically saying, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to fix this. And then I really got it. And also my wife, who's now 48, so we've got a 12-year difference, she's perimenopausal. It's something that I would say, even working with my private clients, talking about their childhoods and their homes, now they realize that one of the changes that took place was their mother's perimenopause, but no one ever talked about things like this. So the questions are totally across the board. And the newspaper manages the inbox when people write, and they choose what I respond to every week. And I just respond to it, really. I have no idea why they choose what they choose. But, since turning 60, my thing is I want to give back. I want to empower people and enable people I want to pass my tools on. Maybe it's legacy. And I feel very, very lucky that I've had a good business. I've had a good life. I'm lucky to be alive, being on the death list and all that kind of stuff, having to go into hiding, very lucky to even be alive. So maybe I have a different relationship to life. But I want to empower people. And some of my clients are rich and famous or whatever it is. And I've been very lucky that I've been able to stay below fame, because fame, people don't realize how fame can cost a person's life. So for me, I'm known for my work, but my clients are the ones who want to be famous, and I can, whether it's doing work similar to me, or they're writers or pop stars or actors or whatever, or they happen to be aristocracy. And they're the ones that I like to support. So they're confident with the work they do, and they can go into the big stages that I don't really need to do. But, I've done some TV, I do some media stuff.
What have you seen uh, that is important for men? Like, is there some specific topics? What do men go through? What is important to know?
I would say it's a male instinct to be safe, to survive, to stay out of trouble. And I would say the two things that run a male's life is avoiding being abandoned and avoiding being humiliated. With that, I would say that one of the most important things that I do with my work is show people how, in their own lives and the people they work with, how to go from being a boy into being a man. And some of my clients, even in their 80s, leave alone their 40s, they're still boys. They're scared little boys who were sent to boarding school or whose spirits were broken through bullying or abandonment or alcoholic parents or divorce or whatever the tragedy was. And they're stuck in that place where they were vulnerable and there wasn't an adult to take care of them. And for some people, it can be a huge tragedy. For some people, it's just that they were late being picked up from school. It doesn't matter what it was that happened. The thing that's important is the impact it had on their lives. It's like one man's sword wound is another man's paper cut, but it's their relationship to it that matters. And for me, being a boy is coming from fear. Being a man is coming from love. Being a boy is reacting to life in panic and very often feeding the same old story. Being a man is being able to respond to life and move into a bigger life and move into the unknown, but consciously. Being a boy is competing, maintaining a place in the pecking order, and trying to be good enough. Where being a man, there's the ability to collaborate because it includes the feminine. So it's not just proving the masculine, it's including the feminine. So there can be collaboration, there can be a lot more choice, and it's living into life rather than surviving life. It's a very different situation. Being a boy is trying to work things out and play the game. And people who play the game can only lose the game. Where being a man is playing their own game, being in alignment with themselves and living a life that's true to themselves. And that way, whatever they do, it's conscious here and now rather than fear of the past, fear of the future. It's right here and right now. And being able to meet life and follow life's signs and temptations. And I guess when I left the UK, I literally consciously at some level gave my life back to life, wherever I need to be, whatever I need to do. And sure, I've got my choices, but it was a commitment to a bigger life. And what I needed to learn to do, I would say my biggest addiction, and a lot of surviving males' biggest addiction, is the head. Not breathing, thinking, fixing, working out, second guessing, and it's just in the head, not available to life, not available to love, not even available to success, not available to anything much, really. It's like when I'm good enough, when I've sorted this out, where one of the most important things we do in the groups is right here and right now is the place to connect. You don't need to be good enough. There is no pecking order. You don't need to be like us. You need to let go of who you no longer need to be and just be here and connect. So it is about being authentic in that way. And for me, what I realized is when there is that spirit breaking time, a part shows up in everyone's life, doesn't matter what gender, a part shows up like the inner protector. And this part says, I will meet the world and you will be safe in the background. No one's going to harm you or break you or anything ever again. I'll meet the world. And the protector's job is survival. And everyone believes that that is who this person is, but that's just the protector. So what I do is I introduce people to the man in them. And the man is the part that's present and connected here and now, able to listen to the protector. But the protector's job isn't moving into a bigger, better life or having boundaries. The protector's job is to survive life. But the man can listen to this information. The child is safe and can move into a bigger life consciously with advice and have boundaries and take part in life. And when the child is safe, then there is access to intuition. Then there is a clear vibe, a very fine tuned frequency that goes out into the world, and that can be responded to. And then life is can literally come and meet that person, and they can meet and follow and move into a bigger, better life. I hope that made sense.
Made a lot of sense. Before the recording, we talked a little bit about alignment.
Mm.
I just feel that this goes very hand in hand with that topic. Maybe you could just share a little bit also to the listeners about like alignment and your perception and view of it.
In a nutshell, I guess alignment for me is right here and right now. I need to be um, aligned with myself between heaven and earth. I'm conscious of my shadow, my fears, my disowned parts, and I know them. So they're in front of me rather than behind me running the show. And I can feel if I'm coming from fear or I'm coming from love. I can feel if I want to manipulate or lie or I have an ulterior motive, or whether I can be true and communicate and just be clear. Um, I would say a very simple way of doing this is to ask in the moment, am I coming from I am, which is here and now I can feel myself and I can extend myself to meet the world with boundaries? Or am I coming from am I? And I'm handing my inner child or my power over to, am I good enough? Am I impressing you? Are you finding me attractive? Are you respecting me? Do I need to do a dance or a show or something so you like me more? And that's handing power over to other people. And for me, another difference between a man and a boy is a boy needs to be either less than and out of power or more than and overpower. And that's where bullies come from. Where for me, a man is in power with nothing to prove and able to empower other people. And I would say another very important thing, and this is one of the things I teach my facilitators, that is ground change, groundbreaking. With the facilitators, it's non-hierarchical. We're all in it together. But when someone comes in with an issue, whatever the issue is, it's not about fixing the issue. It's not about reacting and saving and anything like that. It's about feeling it. And if I can feel into my own pain, into my own trauma, into whatever that person's issue brings up for me, and I can feel into it myself, then I can be with that person. So that goes from the doing and the fixing and the mental stuff into the being together. And I have found so clearly that when a person is met emotionally, energetically with whatever's going on, then that can be felt. It's like feel it and heal it. And then you can live beyond it. It's so much safer and easier to talk about it and talk about it and make a personality out of it and being a victim to it and then re-attracting it. And then it just, what's the word? It justifies it and it feeds the same old story. Where for me, it's time to live beyond the same old story and write the scripts of your own story without attachment. And I would say one of the ways that I've harmed myself in my life in the past is I was attached to how things should be rather than letting things go. It's like, these are my intentions, but this or something better will come my way. And it's always been something better. And the reason it's always been something better is as I've taken a step into life, the whole environment has changed. The whole landscape has changed. So what I was attached to was so small in comparison to the next phase that, of course, it's going to be something better. And it's something I had no idea about. And with all my old addiction to thinking, I had to admit that I'd never actually fixed anything with my thinking. That doesn't make it bad because in my childhood, maybe my thinking saved my life or it kept me safe. But if it's costing me my life as an adult male, then something needs to change. Then it's still handy, but it can't run the show.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing. A couple of things I wanted to ask about. I also have a lot of the men who are involved in what I do, going through different life changes. So um, it seems to be like a period between probably 30 and 40 or 30 or 50 years old. A lot of men go through changes,
Mm.
probably shifting careers, realizing this isn't what I want to do. I want to do something new. Can you share a little bit on life transitions like that? Something that could be supportive also for the listeners? Divorce, like the whole,
Oh,
yeah.
for sure, for sure. I think I'll start from the beginning. Um, and no way is this written in stone. This is very roughly speaking. But I would say that roughly from the age of 0 to 7, people are getting into their physical bodies. And the physical bodies is not just this body standing and, I don't know, eating and shitting and things, but it's also basic needs, being safe, being protected, being provided for. So with some people, if they're not safe, if they're not provided for, it's like that's the place that needs healing. So 0 to 7 is on the planet, physical body, and it's the beginning. And then 7 to 14 is more the emotional body. And the emotional body is relationships beyond the family and into friends, best friends, heartbreaks, boundaries, um, playground stuff, which is vitally important and it can form a person's personality. So that gets into the emotional, including pain and heartbreak, and how to love, how to show up. And then 14 to 21, I would say, is more the mental, which is education, but it's also maybe manipulation, aggression, passive aggression. And then we start getting into pecking order and cliques and things like that. So then it really goes into the head. How do I survive this? How do I get my education? How do I fix this? What's going on? How does the world work? And then very often it's like, well, how have I been limited in the way the world works? And a lot of people might experiment with sex, drugs, things like that. And very often it's not about sex or drugs. It's about wanting to know what more there is or what's kept from them. So it's almost like the quest, the adventure, the biggerness starts. And then 21 to 28, roughly, it's 29 and a half. That's getting into the spiritual. And that's where purpose starts coming in. That's where maybe for some people, religion, for a lot of people, spirituality, for some people, it's more about nature, or these days, there's a lot more to do with plant medicine and stuff like that. But it's like, who am I as a spiritual person? Who am I socially? Who am I in the world and in the way people see me? And those questions come up. And usually by 29 and a half, around that time, maybe a little bit later, that's when there's a line drawn. And it's as if life has said, now you've done the first four. Now we want to meet you beyond the masks and beyond the sub personalities you've formed to survive life. Because now we need to lead you forward in life beyond survival. And that's when a lot of people might have breakdowns or bankruptcies, or they change job, they change career, They have children, they divorce, there are big changes. That's when I gave up my business. I gave up my girlfriend. I gave up my life in the UK and I moved to Fiji. It's like I I responded to a calling inside and I needed it to be my life on my terms, moving into a bigger life. So that's around that time. And then usually at 33, there's a peak. Some people call it the Jesus year. And around that time, with that peak, it's like I get a feeling of myself. And I don't know how this is going to work in life, but I can feel myself. I can feel what brings me alive. Or it might be a suppression and there might be a depression there. Or it might be there's been a lack of expression or a lack of space for expression. And then there might be depression or anger or something. But there's a peak of something is either alive and can be felt, or something is fighting to come alive, of this is who you are. And this is life just showing you. It's like you're here for a reason. Feel it and follow it. Don't be stupid and give everything up because you just need to know who you are. And then usually around 35, it starts getting grounded into, okay, maybe this is how this can be lived consciously in the world. And maybe this is how you can take care of yourself. And people generally want some sort of a safety and a foundation at that age, roughly. And then by the time 40 comes, usually there's a stress before 40, and people are going, oh my God, I'm getting old. I haven't achieved this, that, and the other. I promised myself, blah, 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 blah. And there's the tension. But the way that I don't know about other countries, but in the UK, they say life begins at 40. What I found out, it's self-acceptance at 40. So it's less pushing and less proving. And there's more of an acceptance. This is who I am. This is how I am. These are my skills and my tools. These are my passions. This is a sense of purpose. And there's a different level of life that's a lot calmer and able to take part. Depending, obviously, depending on health, depending on wealth, depending on what's going on. And then it carries on. There's something very strange that very often happens at 42, which I think is a seven cycle. And there's a magical something at 42 where a lot of people question. They question where they are and how things are going. There can be a bit of a wobble, or there can be a real alignment of, okay, I've arrived in something in myself and I can feel safe for things to open up. And I would say, for me, luckily, life has got better and better and better. And I did it in a very strange way, in that I had a very busy childhood where I was very responsible. I remember when my father said to me, you may never see me again. And you're head of the family now, take care of your mother and brother. I was 7 years old. We were going to flee Africa, and he was on the death list. So we didn't know whether we'd see him. He was smuggled out at the last minute, so he was very lucky. But from then, even before then, I was on duty. So I had to I was a little boy man pretending to be a man. So I actually did my adolescence at 34, and I had a best friend who was almost like my shadow. He was the bad boy, I was the good boy, and he did all the dirty work for me until I claimed my shadow. And that was a huge transformation in my pathway. Without a shadow, I'm lopsided and a bit of a wannabe putting on a good show. But that's when I claimed my shadow and I did my adolescence. And then after that, I was safe enough to do my childhood. And I would say, unless I did my adolescence and my childhood, I couldn't become my own man. I was a man that other people liked and respected and blah, blah, blah. But what's the point if I'm excluded from my own life? So I had to be my man, who I respected and who I believed in, with myself in the center of my life. So now I have hit 60, and I had a horrible experience at the end of my 50s, which was a big, big shock. And to be totally transparent, um, out of the blue, And it was on the worst time was my 10th. My wife and I have been together for 21, 22 years. It was our 10th wedding anniversary. And out of the blue, she just turned on me and she turned on herself. And she was very, very angry. She was enraged. And then she was suicidal. And it was absolute hell. And I couldn't really communicate with her. I couldn't make sense. And it's almost like um, the little boy in me needed to fix it and save it and make it right. So she's safe. And if she's safe, I'm safe. And I guess that's the script from my childhood. If I can make the women okay, which was my job, then once they're okay, they can take care of me and I'll be okay. What we found out a couple of weeks later is that behavior was a reaction to antihistamines. The 3 times she took the tablets, she went a little bit weird. The third time, which was on our anniversary, she took twice the dose, and that's what happened. And I would say one of the most important things that I also teach the facilitators and I use in my daily life is when I feel bad, and my God, I felt absolutely terrible. That was one of the worst times of my adult life. I felt my feelings. I couldn't fix it. I just needed to wait and let things be safe. Whatever needed to happen, let it happen. I got into my feelings. I breathed in. I felt my feelings and I followed my feelings back. And where it took me were a couple of times in my life where I was very vulnerable and I was so badly shouted at and broken that I was helpless. And following my feeling back, and people come into the groups every day with whatever's going on, the situation right now. And not only do we meet them emotionally, energetically, but we also invite them to feel the feelings because they're safe enough in the group to be able to feel the feelings, follow it back, and it takes them back to the scene of the crime. It's as if life is saying, we want to give you more. But in order for you to receive more, you've got something you need to clear up. So here's a catalyst to take you back to your dark shadow. And as you feel this and heal this, then you can open up your gold shadow of what might be. And that's where we can navigate into a bigger life. And that's exactly what happened at the end of my 50s. And my 60s, all 1 month and 1 week of it, have been fabulous so far. It's almost as if something needed clearing up.
Yeah, yeah,
And for me, it's not about how do I fix things and put on a good show. It's more, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to unlearn? How do I make space so I can meet life, life can meet me, and I can move forwards? There's one more thing actually, and we did touch on it. I mean, there's the female hormones, whether it's the menstrual cycle or before, during, and after babies, or perimenopause that can go on for 10 years, even more. Um, and then and this affects men and families and work and children and everyone. It's something that needs to be carefully managed. Some women can get very confused. There's brain fog, there's exhaustion, there's the whole sweats. It's very different for different women. And sadly, it's not very often talked about. And the women almost hide it and try and take part in life as if it's not going on. And this is something that a man, it's not for us to fix. This is life. It's for us to meet and ask questions and learn how to manage. And the same goes for the menstrual cycles. There's a friend of mine, Elizabeth Alexandra Pope. I don't remember the name. Wild Genie, I think is the name of her book. And it goes through the 4 inner seasons. And my wife and I had this on a calendar, so we know what's going on and we can navigate when it's time to be out, when it's time for her to have space, when it's time to be silent. And then there's the male menopause, the andropause, where our hormones change. And a lot of men can feel bad about themselves, maybe because their bodies are changing, they haven't got the stamina, they haven't made whatever it is they need to make to be good enough. And lose hair, lose libido, uh, move into a different type of power, move into a different depth of energy. But these are aspects of life that people rarely talk about, and they're perfectly normal, totally normal. You know, need to take care of things like our knees, prostate, have regular checkups, things like that. But yeah, there are a lot of things that rather than sell, be big enough, get ahead of the game. It's like, what absolute nonsense. You need to include yourself in your life.
Thank you for sharing, Kenya. And I think this was a lot of valuable information. And I noticed that I already looking forward to share this episode.
I hope it's not overwhelming and too much.
What I actually do in this podcast now, it's that I invite people. So now we are having this cool conversation, and I also would like to invite you back in some months or whatever. Yeah, suits you to go even deeper. I publish the episodes. The people can listen, and then we can also do a session two.
Wonderful.
Yeah, at some point. And yeah, I hope you're.
How interesting. And
Yeah.
I, when you say do a session,
Hmm.
um, what I do in my private sessions with clients, whether it's live or online, and I don't know whether this would be too personal for you, is I literally ask to speak to their protector,
Hmm.
and they move or they move chair, and that part and I have a conversation.
Hmm.
And the body language, the perspective, the information that part holds is profound. And then we come back. And then I might ask to speak to the man in them or the man emerging or their pusher or the part of them that's holding, I don't know, pain or some sort of a thing that they're not hearing. It could be at their higher self that knows their purpose. So if it's at that depth, that might be very interesting.
I'm open to do it in the second session. Yes. Not right now in the morning.
I'm chuffed that you woke up so early because are you an hour ahead or behind us?
I mean, you woke up earlier because here it's like 9 now.
Ah, here it's
Well,
coming
actually,
at to eight.
yeah, it's 1 hour behind.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
So for you, it's 8 now.
Well, do you know what? This podcast and hanging out with you has been on the cards for how many years? Finally, the time has come. So I'll wake up early in the morning for
Yeah,
it.
but we have talked quite a lot back and forth. So that's really cool, Kenny. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Same. Please share in, I don't know when the podcast's going out, but there are two webinars and the training
Yeah.
and also the men's groups that we hold every day. For the first month, it's free. After that, it's 10 or 20 pounds for unlimited groups. And that's every day. And then there's dad speak for fathers, there's mixed groups, there's all sorts of businessmen, um,
I will
all
share
sorts of
all the link
things.
details, yeah, in the description.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I'm just let me see here.